Right now, in China, you can walk into a store and buy a phone with a 7,400 mAh battery, not some chunky no-name device. A proper flagship from OnePlus or iQOO, thinner than you'd expect, with premium specs across the board. Meanwhile, leaks say Samsung's next Galaxy S26 Ultra is shipping with the same 5,000 mAh battery we've seen for years. That's a gap of almost 2,500 mAh. So today, we're asking a question that a lot of you have been thinking. Chinese phones have 7,400 mAh batteries. Why won't Samsung catch up? What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to X Zone. If you're new here, this is where we break down the biggest stories in smartphones and tech. No bias, no fluff. If that sounds like your kind of channel, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. Today's video is one I've been wanting to make for a while because the battery gap between Chinese market phones and what Samsung offers globally has gotten ridiculous. And I want to help you understand what's actually going on behind the scenes. Let's get into it. So here's the situation. Chinese smartphone brands have entered what I'd call a full-on battery arms race, and it's being driven by a technology called silicon-carbon batteries. In simple terms, silicon-carbon battery chemistry lets manufacturers pack more energy into roughly the same physical space. That means phones can carry massive batteries, 7,000 mAh and above, without turning into bricks. Let me give you some real examples. The OnePlus 15R launched with a battery in the 7,400 mAh class. That is insane for a phone that isn't some niche, rugged device. It's a mainstream, sleek-looking handset. Then you've got the iQOO 15 Ultra, which also came in at 7,400 mAh in its China configuration. And these aren't outliers. Several Chinese flagships are now shipping in the 7,000 to 7,500 mAh range as a standard, not as a special edition or a gimmick. The key enabler here is that silicon-carbon tech. Traditional lithium-ion batteries use graphite anodes, but by mixing in silicon, which can hold way more lithium ions, you get significantly higher energy density. For you as a user, that means a bigger battery in a phone that doesn't feel any thicker or heavier than what you're used to. Chinese brands have moved fast to adopt this, partly because the domestic market is brutally competitive, and battery life is one of the top things consumers there care about. Now let's talk about the other side of the equation. Samsung officially unveiled the Galaxy S26 Ultra at Unpacked on February 25th, and the battery is confirmed at 5,000 mAh, exactly the same capacity as the S25 Ultra, the S24 Ultra, and honestly, this has been the story for multiple generations now. And it actually gets a bit more interesting than just the capacity number. EU energy labels for the S26 Ultra confirmed that the battery is now rated for 1,200 charge cycles to maintain 80% capacity. For comparison, the S25 Ultra was rated for 2,000 cycles, so not only is the raw capacity staying flat, but the long-term battery health rating has actually gone down this generation. Now, to be fair, Samsung did bump wired charging to 60 watts, up from 45 on the S25 Ultra, and the phone is slightly thinner at 7.9 millimeters. Samsung's also claiming improved efficiency from the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 and One UI optimizations, with the same 31-hour video playback figure as last year. But in a world where competitors are shipping 7,400 mAh batteries, sticking at 5,000 naturally raises the question, why? If you're still watching, you're probably the kind of person who actually wants to understand the why behind the specs, not just the numbers. So let's break this down. First up, design and thickness. Samsung is obsessed with keeping the Galaxy Ultra line thin and premium feeling. The S26 Ultra is actually 0.3 millimeters thinner than its predecessor. A bigger battery means more volume, and even with silicon-carbon chemistry, there's still a trade-off. Samsung clearly values that slim profile more than stuffing in every last milliamp hour. Second, weight. The S26 Ultra comes in at 214 grams. A 7,400 mAh battery is heavier than a 5,000 mAh one, full stop. Samsung knows its global customer base includes a lot of people who complain when phones get too heavy. Third, thermal management. Packing a bigger battery generates more heat, and Samsung flagships already have to manage heat from the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 chip, 5G modems, and a high-brightness display with a new privacy display feature. Adding a significantly larger battery could create thermal headaches. Fourth, safety and brand risk. Samsung, more than almost any other brand, has lived through a battery nightmare. The Note 7 recall is still a shadow that hangs over their engineering decisions. They operate under stricter internal safety margins, and they sell into markets all over the world, each with different regulatory requirements. Fifth, cost. Silicon carbon batteries are more expensive to produce right now. Samsung ships hundreds of millions of phones globally. Even a small per-unit cost increase adds up fast at that scale. And finally, brand positioning. Samsung's marketing story this generation is all about Galaxy AI, privacy display, camera improvements, and software intelligence. Their pitch is essentially, we don't need a 7,400 mAh battery because our software and efficiency make 5,000 mAh go further. You can agree or disagree with that, but it's clearly their strategy. Okay, so here's where it gets personal. What do these numbers actually mean when you're using the phone? If you're a heavy user, gaming, streaming, social media all day, maybe traveling without easy access to a charger, a 7,400 mAh battery is a game changer. The OnePlus 15R tested at 38 hours of video rundown. You're realistically looking at 2 full days of moderate use without anxiety. With Samsung's 5,000 mAh approach, you're still getting a solid day for most people. And One UI has gotten pretty good at managing background drain. But heavy users will likely still hit the charger by evening. And power users know the stress of watching that percentage drop during a long day out. That said, there are real reasons some of you might still prefer Samsung's approach. One UI is one of the most polished Android skins out there. Samsung's camera system on the S26 Ultra is excellent. 200-megapixel main sensor with a wider aperture this generation. You get years of guaranteed software updates, a massive global ecosystem, the new privacy display feature, and a brand you can walk into any carrier store and get help with. For a lot of people, that peace of mind outweighs the battery gap. Let me know in the comments, would you trade your Samsung ecosystem for an extra 2,400 mAh? I'm genuinely curious where you all land on this, and this is exactly the kind of debate we love at Xzone. So what happens next? This is speculation on my part, not insider info, but here's what I think is likely. Samsung is almost certainly watching the silicon carbon battery trend closely. They're a massive battery manufacturer themselves through Samsung SDI, so it's not like they don't have access to the technology. The question is when they decide the tech is mature enough, cost-effective enough, and safe enough to deploy at their global scale. With the S26 Ultra now official and still at 5,000 mAh, we probably won't see a dramatic jump until the S27 generation at the earliest. But within the next year or two, I wouldn't be surprised if Samsung starts inching capacity up meaningfully, especially as phones like the OnePlus 15R prove that 7,400 mAh batteries work just fine in thin, globally available flagships at $699. That kind of value proposition makes Samsung's 5,000 mAh increasingly hard to justify at premium prices. The battery arms race isn't slowing down. If anything, it's accelerating. And Samsung, for all its strengths, can't afford to ignore it forever. This is definitely a story Xzone will be tracking closely, so make sure you're subscribed. Alright, so here's the bottom line. Chinese brands with 7,400 mAh batteries are here, and they're in flagship devices like the OnePlus 15R, which you can buy globally right now, and the iQOO 15 Ultra in China. They're powered by silicon carbon tech that's genuinely pushing the industry forward. Meanwhile, Samsung officially confirmed the Galaxy S26 Ultra is holding the line at 5,000 mAh, and even took a step backward on battery cycle longevity, from 2,000 cycles down to 1,200. Neither approach is objectively wrong. It depends on what you value, but the gap is real, and it's growing. So here's my question for you. Would you pick up a phone like the OnePlus 15R for that massive 7,400 mAh battery at $699? Or do you still prefer Samsung's more polished, premium approach, and you're fine living with 5,000 mAh? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button, subscribe to Xzone if you haven't already, and hit the bell so you catch the next one. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.